Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk, weathering a very severe electrical storm here over our headquarters, so it may be a little while before we can safely go back to the phones. I mean, we were listening as we were talking to these people on the phone. You could hear the lightning crackling through the phone lines, and our call screener, Wesley Wildman, he's the new guy, and we were going to send him out wrapped in tinfoil, so just in case there was a lightning strike, you know, it would be diverted from Focal Point, and we felt he's the new guy and he's here to serve, and you know that's what we ought to be willing to do. For some reason, he wasn't willing to step into the breach and volunteered to do that. So and plus he is the son of the president of the American Family Association, so we had to do some do some second thinking about that. We had to think about that whole strategy again. So anyway, maybe a little while before we're able to take phone calls again. When the storm lessens up, we will go back to the phones. And the number when we open up the phone lines again will be 888-589-8840. But I want to go back to these two stories. They're sort of companion pieces, take a completely different tack. But Angelo Codavia saying, look, everybody in the world knows that NSA is surveilling Al-Qaeda. They're monitoring international communications traffic, whether it's phones or whether it's emails or whatever. So Al-Qaeda knows this. The whole world knows this now, since the Snowden deal and all the stories in the London Telegraph. So he's saying, look, what Al-Qaeda's doing is they know that NSA is listening to them, so they're deliberately increasing the chatter just to make us think that something serious is about to go down. Let's see. The shutdown and warnings then proceed from the assumption either that the terrorists chatter amongst themselves, blissfully ignorant of what anyone who cares to look knows about the NSA's reach, or that they willfully warn us. So he says, look, rationally, there's only two possibilities here. Number one, these guys have no idea that they're being monitored. They have no idea that they're being surveilled. Well, that just doesn't make any sense in light of what everybody in the world has been talking about over the last month. Or the only other possibility is that they're making a deliberate attempt to warn us. Now, they're not going to do that. Why would they tip us off that they're about to strike? And so Codavia goes on, that assumption that they would be willfully warning us flies in the face of experience. The terrorists who have bitten us have not chattered, while those who chatter do not bite. So in other words, the people that have struck us, there was no increased chatter that tipped us off that an attack was about to happen. And where there has been this increased level of chatter, there have been no attacks. So the terrorists who have bitten us have not chattered, while those who chatter do not bite. The terrorists who brought mortars and grenade launchers to destroy U.S. facilities in Benghazi and kill our people did not chatter. And again, he talks about the fact that we're told by the U.S. government that this chatter is specific. Now, this is contrary to common sense. Any specificity would focus attention on specific people and places rather than eliciting meaningless general measures and warnings. This leads reasonable persons to conclude that some enemies of the United States, knowing well that NSA is listening, decided to give it an earful with a few names and places thrown in by way of example, but not enough to remove the impression they sought to give of general mayhem, and so they chattered. They had sound reason to believe that U.S. intelligence executives would trigger equally incompetent policymakers fearful of being blamed for an attack on their watch preceded by such chatter. The lesson to be taken from all this is that the NSA's well-known capacity to intrude and manipulate electronic communications, but only those that are not thoughtfully guarded, combined with lack of quality control, leaves it at the mercy of any of its targets that wishes to feed it disinformation and then to watch the U.S. government's self-discrediting reaction. So again, I'm not sure what to make of that. I find it intriguing. Angelo Codavia, pretty smart fella, saying it just doesn't make sense that they don't know that they're being monitored And it doesn't make sense that they're warning us of an attack. They don't do that. Never done that in the past. So the only alternative is that they're messing with us and that we are falling for it. Now, I don't see how you can ignore it. If you got this increased chatter and we find out the government did nothing to protect citizens, then there's obviously going to be a firestorm of outrage, and there ought to be. So you have to do something. But what that means then is we are dancing to their tune. Rob, let's play that video clip number 1. Again, this is a montage of Barack Obama and Joe Biden. I mean, and you think about this. I mean, it's even worse. What Codavia's suggestion here is even almost worse than if Al-Qaeda was actually planning something. He's saying they're not planning anything. They're just manipulating us into some kind of hysterical overreaction to see how much mileage they can get out of what they know is a completely manufactured and bogus threat, which means we are like little marionettes. The mightiest nation in the history of the world, the mightiest military in the entire world. We are dancing like little puppets. We're like little scaredy cats. Anytime Al-Qaeda says boo, we jump and ask how high on the way up. So again, I ask you, does this make it sound like Al-Qaeda is on the run? Does this make it sound like Al-Qaeda has been decimated? Well, let's listen to this montage, Barack Obama, Joe Biden from the last 2 years.
There should be no doubt. Today, America is stronger, and Al-Qaeda is on the path to defeat. We've decimated Al-Qaeda's leadership.
Al-Qaeda is on the path to defeat, and bin Laden is dead.
We decimated Al-Qaeda Central. We have eliminated Osama bin Laden.
Al-Qaeda is much weaker than it was when I came into office.
Osama bin Laden is dead, and General Motors is alive.
The war in Afghanistan is coming to a close. Al-Qaeda is on the path to defeat. Osama bin Laden is dead. Today, the core of Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan and Pakistan is on the path to defeat. Their remaining operatives spend more time thinking about their own safety than plotting against us.
You know, it's interesting. So you got this Angela Codavia piece, and I just presented to you for your thinking that maybe all of this is just mind games from Al-Qaeda. Then here's another interesting thing to think about, and this is what Bill Gertz is going to say. And I think, can we start taking phone calls again, guys? Okay, the number to call is 888-589-8840, 888-589-8840. See, if you'd like to call and join the conversation about Al-Qaeda, about these embassies closing, about Codavia's theory that this is just Al-Qaeda messing with us, about the fact there were 14 victims, not 13 at Fort Hood, the way he's been treated compared to how our soldiers have been treated. Our conversation with Bob Vanderplatz about the 2016 election, the possible role evangelical community could play in that. And now I forgot completely where I was going. Anyway, it's 888-589-8840. But the interesting thing is, remember that CNN dropped this absolute bombshell on Thursday. I mean, an absolute stunning bombshell that there were 35 CIA operatives on the ground in Benghazi the night that attack went down. Got another story in the stack here saying that basically Valerie Jarrett was running the show that night. President Obama gets the report, things are in trouble. He goes and has dinner, disappears, watches movies, goes bowling. Valerie Jarrett was running the whole thing in the Situation Room. President Obama was completely AWOL. And remember, we have pretty good reason to think now that Valerie Jarrett was the one that gave the go sign to actually take out Osama bin Laden. She couldn't get Obama to pull the trigger. And she said, look, we've got to take him out now that we got the chance. President Obama's out playing golf. So she gives the order to pull the trigger on Osama bin Laden when Barack Obama is out playing golf. And after the attack is launched, the green light is given, then President Obama is summoned from the golf course, comes into the Situation Room. You've seen the pictures, him just kind of hunched over, looking small and tiny, wearing his windbreaker and his golf shirt, kind of late to the party. So Valerie Jarrett apparently kind of running things for President Obama. He's indecisive. She apparently is not, so she's willing to make these tough calls for him. And she apparently was the one who refused to give the order. There was a C-130 in Tripoli that could have been deployed that night that had the kind of weapons on board that could have neutralized the threat at the annex. Now, couldn't have got there in time to do anything for Ambassador Stevens, But remember, we had the two guys that died on the roof of the annex. Now, this C-130, with its troops and its equipment, could have gotten to Benghazi in time to neutralize the threat to the annex. Somebody had to tell them to stand down, and that apparently was not President Obama. It was Valerie Jarrett that would not give the green light. Now, here's the thing. 35 operatives on the ground that night. We don't know who they are. We don't know where they are. We've never been able to talk to any of them. We played that soundbite from Frank Wolf. They were all told to sign non-disclosure agreements, not to talk to the media, not to talk to the press, not to talk to Congress, not to talk to anybody. Trey Gowdy saying, look, their names have been changed. They've been given new identities. They have been dispersed throughout the country so nobody can find them even if they want. Ladies and gentlemen, that's huge. That is a monster story. Have you heard anybody talking about that since Friday? Have you heard anybody? We had a briefing yesterday. Friday, Jay Carney didn't even have a briefing on Friday, the day after this story broke, so nobody can ask him awkward questions. Now they have one yesterday, and nobody in the media asked him a single solitary question about this explosive CNN story. And this is where Bill Gert's theory comes into play on Washington Free Beacon. Intelligence regarding al-Qaeda plans to attack U.S. embassies, officials, and interests last Sunday was known for months by U.S. intelligence agencies, but was used only recently to trigger the closure of embassies and issuance of public warnings of impending attacks. So he says, look, people have known about this increased chatter level for months. It's been widely known in the intelligence community, widely reported in classified intelligence reports. So his question is, why are they making a big deal of it now? Why suddenly are we having embassies closed? Here's the suggestion. The timing of the administration's announced closure of numerous U.S. embassies in the Middle East has raised concerns among U.S. officials that the Obama administration is politicizing intelligence to distance attention from the Benghazi and other scandals. So what Gertz is saying, this whole thing is political. The Obama trying to get attention off of it, and is it working? It absolutely is. Nobody is talking about 35 CIA operatives. Nobody's talking about them being dispersed. Nobody's talking about their identities being changed. Nobody's talking about that. It's all about the closure of these embassies. Gertz saying this is all political on the part of the Obama administration to divert attention from Benghazi. Back in 2.